Get your first £40 in losing bets refunded in cash when you join SBK. Deposit £10 and up to your first £40 of losses will be refunded as cash within 24 hours of qualifying bet having been settled. Well worth a go. Hello and welcome to episode 47 of Touchline Talk with Odds Changer and SBK. I'm missing my normal partner in crime today, and Dean Jones, who's away on vacation in America. So I've got a good substitute in. It's Steven McInerney, Manchester City fan and YouTube presenter of Esteemed Kompany, to talk all things about Manchester City, Pep Guardiola and City's ambitions for this season. Hi, Stephen, you all right?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Are you okay? Just a late night for me, so I'm a bit tired today, but yeah, I've got the coffee here. Are you all right?
Yeah, all good, mate. That late night was down to covering Manchester City's Champions League game against Paris Saint-Germain. Not the result that City wanted, but
no.
Pretty inevitable that Lionel Messi would score.
Yeah, it was. It was one of those games where City actually played pretty well. I'm not just trying to say that from pointing my City hat on. Genuinely played pretty good football, and but I guess if you're playing a team the quality of PSG with Neymar and Mbappe and obviously Messi, you may have heard of him, then you don't take your chances. They're probably going to do the exact opposite and do that. And Messi's goal it's the kind of goal that he's normalised over the past 10 years that looks easy for him somehow, but is probably the greatest goal of many people's careers. But that's Messi for you, a ridiculous player. And to be honest, you probably should be scoring if you're Manchester City last night. We didn't, and that was our fault because they punished us, really. But overall, it was a decent performance. Didn't get the result, lost. But PSG are the kind of side that can do that to anyone if you don't fully turn up, So, oh well.
No, still plenty of time for City to make up points in that group, and I'm sure they will qualify out of that group probably alongside PSG, even though Club Brugge have made a good start in the group as well. But it's just been over a month now since the transfer window closed, Stephen. Obviously, we all know Manchester City very publicly tried to sign Harry Kane. The move didn't happen due to Tottenham pricing him out of a move. Any regrets over that move not happening, with Harry Kane not playing in that Man City shirt?
I mean, the regrets for me purely are just more that we didn't sign a striker, not necessarily Harry Kane. I think there's probably a plethora of strikers you'd probably have a field day in this Manchester City side. I do think that was the aim, to sign someone. We did clearly put all our eggs in one basket, big Harry Kane basket. It didn't happen, which is a big shame. I think after a game like last night, the PSG game, it really highlighted that someone with that instinct. It's crazy that I'm a Manchester City fan. I'm talking about a lack of instinct up front, but this just it's the situation that we found ourselves in through various decisions and so on. But I mean, that highlighted it. I mean, Kane's a fantastic player, and this is just me personally, and this is a wild thing. I kind of didn't want Harry Kane personally, and I know that's very much spoiled child syndrome, and I could hold my hands up and admit that, mainly because he was the Spurs guy, and I like exciting new talent, if that makes sense. It's just a personal thing, and but at the same time, if he came to Manchester City, I can't deny he probably would score an absolute ton of goals. So yeah, I think the club probably regrets it. I think Guardiola almost certainly does. I can't complain too much, because life is pretty good for Manchester City fans right now in general. But yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that there are some shortcomings, and certain games this season have highlighted that. Maybe the Southampton game, even though we didn't play particularly well against Southampton, when you have a world-class striker that invites fear, it causes his team to sit a little bit deeper because those half chances become full chances. And I guess last night against PSG, for example, was a decent example of where that difference. I'm just hoping it isn't the difference at the end of the season for a big trophy. It wasn't last season until the Champions League final, but it could be. And it was essentially, playing with fire a little bit on that front.
Yeah, so with that in mind then, Stephen, do you think City will go into the market in January and try and sign a striker to ease those worries of not having a recognised number 9 at the minute, with Gabriel Jesus sort of playing as a wide forward?
I don't think January is the kind of window where you sign a big striker that's going to lead the club for the next 10 years. It doesn't seem like the kind of thing we'll do, because there's a massive January transfer window tax, and there's an element as well of the club just kind of accepting what they've got and pushing on, then getting the right player in the summer where it becomes a little bit easier. It definitely comes cheaper because you don't have to throw an extra 20-30 million on, because the club doesn't want to lose their best player. So I would love it. There are some rumours that infamous Haaland release clause is available from January, because it's a 2022 thing as opposed to a summer thing, which would be interesting. I don't know if that's true or not. I would absolutely love it. realistically, I can't really see it. City aren't that kind of club to do that usually. They're not. We spend a lot of money, I'm not going to deny that, but usually in the summer. We've only really done it once, notably in the Guardiola reign, and that was Laporte, and that was a release fee clause, so it doesn't feel like a very Manchester City thing to do to go in January. Don't get me wrong, it would be an absolutely huge boost, and I would be delighted because after that, I'm very lucky to be able to say we have no real weaknesses, other than that striking situation. So we do, that'd be great. But I'm not going to get my expectations up on that front, really.
Yeah. Do you think that City have now moved on from Harry Kane? That move is dead in the water. They won't revisit the situation with the England international. And who would be your dream signing if City were to bring in a new number 9? Would it be a Haaland, a Kylian Mbappe, possibly?
Football's mad, isn't it? So I'll never say never, because you never know what's going to happen. Like Kane, he could have a genuine stinker from now until January when he's already started the season pretty slowly, and Spurs might go or even until next summer they might go just let him go, for a decent deal. Having said that, I personally feel that the club will feel like they've lost a year of Kane potentially at his best, and he's not the youngest. I wouldn't say he's old, but he's not the youngest. And my gut instinct is that Kane had the last couple of years, and it didn't happen for him in terms of Manchester City, because there was rumours that City wanted him quite intensely the year before, but hunted down Messi instead, and that didn't particularly go well, unfortunately. So I think that kind of door, unfortunately, is closed for Kane. Might be wrong, because he might become suddenly 10 times cheaper, but I can't really see Daniel Levy doing that or Spurs doing that. So for me, it's got to be Haaland. He's the dream. He's an absolute brute of a striker. And of course, as well, there's the links with Manchester City. I mean, he supports the club. I'm not saying he's like, season ticket holder sat in the East stand. I mean, but his dad played for the club. There's plenty of photos of his kid running around in a Balotelli shirt and all that kind of stuff, which I love. He's been at games. I've seen him at games. I've been stood next to him near every game before when he was 17 when we were playing Feyenoord in Champions League. So I know he has a soft spot for the club generally because his dad played there, and he's also just ridiculously good. Like, he's not fair. Like, it's not fair how good he is as a striker. And he has that ruthless instinct in front of goal, where even quarter chances become whole chances. He's just absolute quality. So for me, he's the one. I mean, no one's going to say no to Kylian Mbappe either. I don't think that's going to happen for what it's worth. I'm not even sure Haaland will, but I think Haaland's more realistic than Mbappe. And Mbappe, everyone knows he's got eyes on Madrid. Everyone knows that. It's what he wants to be. And whereas Haaland, to me, I feel like he probably would have a thing for the Premier League. And in that instance, if I was Manchester City, and I'm not, sadly, I don't have the money there, but if I was, I would be saying to him, look, come on, you're the Aguero replacement, and like one of the most iconic players in English sporting history, Sergio Aguero. You are the replacement, and you go into the team that your dad played for, Manchester City, and there's literally a ready-made spot for you that no one is really going to challenge you for. You possibly playing for the best club in the Premier League as well. That's what I would be selling it as, a perfect opportunity, a perfect slot for him. But obviously, he's going to be very expensive. And even for a club like Manchester City, if you're dealing with Mino Raiola and the agent fees, it's a lot. It's going to be a lot. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's going to be a big deal, whatever happens with Erling Haaland next summer, probably with that release clause kicks in at Dortmund as well. But there will be a lot of suitors for him as well. It won't just be City. You'll have Chelsea's, the Manchester United's, Liverpool's. There's always talk of Real Madrid being in for him as well.
They'll find the money, won't they? They'll find the money.
Somewhere to get it down the back of the sofa or something. Real Madrid. I don't know,
big sofa they've got there.
They've got a very big sofa. It's carried them over the years, I think. So I don't know where they buy them from, but hey, they're big ones, definitely. But City did make a big signing in the summer with the £100 million signing of Jack Grealish. What have you made of his impact so far since his move to City?
It's generally good, I would say. Generally good. There's a couple of times where he's looked a little bit like this is a bit different to Aston Villa, and I mean that in the most respectful way possible. I mean, in terms of the level Villa are playing at, but then all of a sudden playing against Messi in the Champions League. Like Villa are a very good side, obviously steeped into their own tradition as well. But for the past few years, they haven't been playing maybe at the level demanded by Manchester City. For example, the Chelsea game. I would love to know the last time Jack Grealish had to work as hard as that against Chelsea, because that was intensity, and there was a sheer quality to that even as a Manchester City fan, and I get to watch very good football, and I'm very blessed that way, but I've not seen that level of control and technical ability from Manchester City for probably a couple of years. It was ridiculous. So that was possibly the most high quality game he's maybe even played in, if that makes sense, in terms of a team performance. So he's essentially had to do a crash course in Guardiola's football and Manchester City style, and there's a couple of times where maybe he's He looks a little bit maybe slow to react to the way the game's moved. But a couple of times we've seen his inherent quality as well. And when it comes to attacker at Manchester City, even if they're worth £100 million like Jack Grealish, I still feel largely that this season is a relatively free swing for him. I'm not saying he can have terrible games week in, week out, but I do remember when Bernardo Silva joined. I do remember when Riyad Mahrez joined, and Leroy Sané, all absolutely fantastic players, you know, in their own way. But they started slowly at Manchester City, and they didn't really kind of break into the team until around Christmas time, like properly. So, and I think there's a reason for that. I think playing as an attacker for Pep Guardiola, or playing in any position really, but particularly as an attacker, it's all about, you know, positional awareness and movement and so on, how you link up and know when to slow down and speed up the play. So I think Grealish has got an awful lot to learn on that front still, but he's still had some really nice moments, you know. But I think that's fine. Grealish, as Guardiola said, has been signed for many, many years, not just this season. You know, he's only 26, recently turned 26. He's got several years left in a Manchester City shirt. So I think he's got that clear quality. He's got room to improve, but I think we probably all knew that anyway. But I think it's been a decent start, like a proper, like, you know, a B plus kind of, maybe a B level kind of start so far.
Yeah, still a lot more to come from Jack Grealish. The thing that's impressed me probably so far with Grealish is the way he's handled being the British record signing, 100 million.
Yeah, I agree.
And it doesn't seem that's affected him at all. He's gone out there, done his game. He was the main man at Villa. He's obviously a bit of a smaller fish in the big pool of Manchester City, but he's got his head down. It will take him time to adapt to Pep Guardiola's methods and tactics, but I think a move to City, playing in the Champions League on a regular basis, will take Jack Grealish to the next level, and surely we'll only see him improve as a player.
Yeah, I think so, hopefully.
Yeah, so now I think bright start for Jack, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more to come from him over the next few months and next few seasons at Manchester City. With the arrival of Grealish, it's obviously increased competition for places in Pep Guardiola's side. One man who maybe could find himself a casualty of that is Raheem Sterling. He's yet to sign a new deal. He was linked with several clubs during the summer, which nothing really happened on that one. What's your take on the future for Raheem Sterling at Man City? Is he seemingly on the way out, or does he still remain part of Pep's long-term plans?
It's a really, really tricky one. Essentially, I think he's got less than 2 years left in his contract now. So when we get to the summer, that's a decision someone's going to have to make, you know, if it's not been made already by them, because you've got, you know, a guy with an absolutely huge reputation around the world and immense quality when he's in form, potentially available on a free, you know, a year later. So we're going to have to make a decision there. And I'm not optimistic about this, actually. I feel like there's a little bit of frustration. I feel like it's a bit of a potential problem, because Sterling, for whatever reason, he's fantastic when he's at his very best. For whatever reason, right now he isn't in his best form for Manchester City. He's a little bit loose, running into kind of blind alleyways and so on. And if we're being honest, like Manchester City played what they deemed their strongest 11 against Chelsea. He wasn't in it, and he wasn't in it. And that look, there's no way in previous years Sterling doesn't start a game like that simply because of his pace, his guile, his energy. And if we're being honest, even if he can scuff the odd chance in front of goal, he scored an awful lot of goals as well. So he was very useful. Right now, he's a rotation guy, and that must be a hit to a guy who became a superstar. You know, he genuinely became a talisman in this country, in England, and that must affect his confidence a little bit. So I feel like his confidence is low. He's got that ticking time bomb of his contract, slowly running down, and the fact that as well, he probably has to accept right now that his two compatriots in Phil Foden and Jack Grealish they're ahead of him in the pecking order. That must be a little. I mean, bear in mind he was probably the one mentoring them to an extent at certain times in his career, and that must take a bit of a, you know, a bit of an ego damage his ego basically. But in terms of how you play out, like, look, I understand why Guardiola will keep rotating Sterling in, because you want it to click with him, because when it does, he's a fantastic player. But I don't really know what's going to happen. There were some rumours and suggestions that he might have been one of the players that thought about potentially leaving in the summer. But obviously, it was a COVID market, and no one's got any money and so on, and nowhere near to the extent previously. And I think maybe in another summer, pre-pandemic, if someone like Sterling had been available for a reasonable price, I think most teams would have snapped your hands off. But it's interesting to see, because I don't really know where you'd go right now. But I'm hoping the best case scenario is he finds his form, gets a new contract, stays around, and carries on scoring the absolute ton of goals that he scored for Manchester City. But right now, I'm a little bit on the fence about it. I'm not sure which way he's going to go, because I can see either possibility unfolding. And right now, I think his form is pretty poor, and it's been not his best for probably a year and a half for City now. It's not really been a very recent thing. It's been a little bit longer than that. Right now, I wouldn't be surprised if it did lead to a slow exit. Not like something, like I just don't want to leave on a free, but that's what I'm scared of.
No, it's a real challenge for Raheem Sterling to try and establish himself back in Guardiola's starting 11, I think, with, as you said, the options that he has now with Jack Grealish and Phil Foden. And I know he's never hidden his admiration for maybe playing abroad at some point, Raheem Sterling. So let's see what happens with Raheem Sterling in the summer, because it's going to be a big season ahead for him. If he's not playing regularly, he's the type of player who will probably look to move on and find a club where he is going to be playing regularly to keep his place in that England squad, which is also going to come under threat when you've got the likes of Grealish and Foden playing ahead of you for the Manchester City side as well. So
yeah, of course.
Interesting few months ahead for Raheem Sterling, who again has been a great servant for City. I think he's made 300 appearances now at the weekend against Chelsea.
Yeah.
So you forget that, how many games he's
been around for a while now. For a while, like pre-Guardiola, of course. Pellegrini signed him.
Mm-hmm. So he's been a great servant for City as well. Talking of City, some of their exciting youngsters got to go in the Carabao Cup last week against Wickham and did themselves a lot of favours with the performances in that one. Cole Palmer scoring his first goal for the club in that game. How do you feel the future bright for City's youngsters, or do you fear they might suffer this fate like some of the Chelsea youngsters who obviously weren't able to break into the star-studded first team and then were forced to move on? Has Cole Palmer got a real chance of maybe becoming the next Phil Foden? We got the others, the likes of Liam Delap, who's been talked a lot about. I know he possibly could have moved on in the summer on loan before an injury sort of stopped that move. We've got John McAtee as well, who's making big waves at the academy and for the under-23s team as well. Are you confident that City's youngsters are good enough to come in and maybe make a name for themselves in that first 11?
Yeah, I personally been paying attention to the academy for a few years, and I've gone and watched the academy games. And I'm being honest, we're sat on a genuine, fantastic bunch of young players. I know it's easier to say that for fans in most clubs, but these are ones that have succeeded and overachieved even for England at youth level. They're fantastic young players. Cole Palmer is such an elegantly gifted young player. He reminds me a little bit of a Kai Havertz type of the Chelsea guy. And he scored his first goal the other day against Wickham, and it was a fantastic goal as well. The best thing about his goal was not only was it a wonderful finish from 20 yards, it was the fact that he ignored Sterling, Mahrez and De Bruyne because he wanted that goal himself. And he said it afterwards in his interview as well, that there's a few times where he came on and he played the dutiful role of a young player subservient to the first team players, where they pass it around and try and fit in. But he thought, this time I'm going to go for it. I was really glad he did, because it showed a confidence that you get from being around the first team. And I think he's made a few appearances now, a few starts. So that was almost very much like a slight coming of age moment for him. I'm not saying he's going to jump into the first team and play regularly, but that was very much, I can do it at this level kind of belief in it, which I really liked. I know he was once again only Wickham, with all due respect to Wickham, and it wasn't, a Champions League game or anything like that. But still, there was a confidence there. It's weird to say that it was a positive to see him ignore his senior compatriots, but it was a good thing. In that instance, he needed to be a little bit selfish and show it. James McAtee is such a gifted player. He started the season in the Premier League too, in fantastic form. He scored 2 back-to-back hat-tricks. At one point, he had 11 goals in 7 games for our under-23 side. Gifted, very David Silva-like on the ball. And to be honest, Liam Delap as well, Rory Delap's son, and no, he hasn't got a good long throw, which everyone always asks. In fact, he did apparently, but he got encouraged not to do it as a lad. But he's a bullish, brutal striker who actually broke goal-scoring records last season at under 23 levels. Well, I think he scored 27 goals in 22 games or something like that in the Premier League. It's very close to that. It's more goals than games anyway, which was a record for the Premier League too. And it's him, and then we've got a young player called Romeo Lavia, who's a 17-year-old defensive midfielder, came from Anderlecht, Belgian, really highly rated at the club, seen as a potential successor to the squad role that Fernandinho's got. And if I'm being honest, it's very hard to break into this Manchester City side. It doesn't matter how good you are. It took Phil Foden about 3 or 4 years to finally get into the side as a regular. But there is potentially a bit of a passing of the torch kind of situation going on, because we've got a few players that I hate saying they're old because they're younger than me, but like Gundogan and De Bruyne and Mahrez, they're all flirting and hanging around, the early 30s now, 30s, essentially. Yeah. So they're all 30 plus. So where you've got like Gundogan and De Bruyne there, 30, 31, 30, that kind of age. James McAtee, Cole Palmer. James McAtee in particular, a very gifted attacking midfielder. Could he easily, hopefully, if he hangs around the first team a little bit, maybe slot into that role. Cole Palmer plays as attacking midfielder for Guardiola, but he's made his name at academy level as a right midfielder, a right winger. And when he plays there, he's essentially identical to Riyad Mahrez in how he plays. And Mahrez is another one who's over 30 now. And then we've also got a bunch of young players, young defenders. A guy called Callum Doyle on loan at Sunderland. He's only 17. He's doing fantastically well there. They love him despite being 17. And Luke Mbete, who's essentially a young Vincent Kompany clone. I'm not kidding. He genuinely walks and moves exactly the same. And he played well the other day as well. So I'm hoping that when inevitably one of the 4 centre-backs that we got wants to leave because they won't get enough game time, which is probably inevitable. I can imagine Ake or someone like that asking to move. I'm hoping we'll use a young player. But as ever, to get into this Manchester City side, you have to be special. You have to be, because the bar is so high. But I do hope at least, look, if another one or two of them breaks through, and there's about 5 or 6, I think I've got a genuinely good shout, I'd be really happy, because once again, it means a little bit more to me personally. I've been very spoiled with all this the success and the riches and so on. It's been great, but sometimes you really do crave just watching one of your own. And I don't know, maybe it's living that kind of fantasy you want as yourself as a young kid, and like hearing Phil Foden's Manc accent, that means something to me. And likewise, hearing Cole Palmer after he scored his first goal the other day, just going, "Oh mate, yeah, it was great, innit?" and buzzing, in a proper Manc troll. I loved it because it means a little bit more. So fingers crossed, because to be honest, it'll benefit City because they will care, because they've been at this club forever, and it'll benefit the English game as well. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, obviously City fans have been spoiled with the number of big name signings and the big money that's been spent on some of the players. But the fact, as you've mentioned, Stephen, would love nothing better than seeing some of their own home-produced players coming through and getting their opportunity in the first team. And surely the example for those boys is what Phil Foden's done. He's worked hard and shown his immense talent to break into Guardiola's plans.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Foden is he's the poster boy for the academy, and rightfully so. He's ridiculous. I think he's going to go up another level this season as well. The genuine instinct is that he'll, as good as he was last season, I think he'll get even better. And so he should, given his age. But I think we forget as well, this is the first season Phil Foden's gone into pre-season training or into a new season with 0 question marks about his status in the squad. Because even last season, I know it's crazy to think, given he won the award in the end and it was so good, but even in terms of around November, there were still rumblings of apparent discontent that he wasn't playing much. So this is the first season where he might feel like he belongs, so to speak. And I can't wait to see what he does with that. And I think the early signs have been really encouraging post-injury, where he looked like he wanted to take hold of things. And I think as well, even against PSG, when City were maybe struggling a little bit with creativity and width, he came on and he made a real difference, which is testament to his quality already. So Phil Foden is an example to pretty much everyone, but he works exceptionally hard, really gifted, and hopefully, like Cole Palmer, James McAtee, and so on, and Liam Delap can essentially take a bit of inspiration for him. So.
Yeah, if you can't learn off Phil Foden, I don't think there's any chance for anybody out there. He's been a great example for any of those kids at the academy. Talking of City's promise and everything else, must be promising again that you think City can retain the Premier League title this season. They are still the team to beat. I think that was outlined in the masterclass they put on against Chelsea when, I think for the first time in a long time, City went into that game not as favourites to win because of Chelsea's bright start to the season, but I think City really set out a statement to the rest of the Premier League. Is that going to be the main goal for City this year, is to retain that Premier League title?
It always should be. I'm a firm believer personally that I think City one day will win the Champions League. I don't think that's controversial. I think we've got, presuming the investment stays the same and, City are at the top end of the table buying great players, eventually we'll win the Champions League. And I don't know if it's now, in 5 years or in 20, but eventually City will win there. But I'm a firm believer personally, I want to win it in close proximity to win the Premier League, and ideally the same season, just because I wanted to be able to say, no, we are the best team in Europe. And I think when you finish, barely reach the top 4 or whatever, and you win the Champions League. I remember Chelsea finishing 6th and they won it, and which is great for the fans. Don't get me wrong, they're buzzing, but they weren't the best team in Europe. They just weren't
the best team in the league.
Exactly, yeah. And they had a great cup competition. So I want City to always win the league, simply because I feel like it's the marathon, and the Champions League, the cream invariably does rise to the top, but it's a cup competition, and if you play the best teams in the world, best teams in Europe, anyone can beat anyone. There's a group of teams right now, maybe at the top of the game, like Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea, PSG, Bayern, and so on. Any of them can beat any of them on the day. It's just how it is. So I guess for me, I will always aim for that consistency in the Premier League, win that, then hope for the best in the Champions League. I mean, the Chelsea game for me, that was a line in the sand moment. City fans are rightfully a little bit frustrated against Southampton, but I kind of personally felt that game was never really going to judge the season because it sort of didn't mean anything. And what I mean by that, of course, you want to win against Southampton, but the game that everyone's going to judge City's credentials on and their capacity to win the league was always going to be the Chelsea game, always. Yeah. And even though we were poor against Southampton, no one cared after this Chelsea game because City was so imperious and so impressive that would have probably sent shockwaves around the Premier League. Like, if you thought we weren't here, still we are. We're still very much alive here, and even without a striker, this City side can still be absolutely special. So. I think it has to be the Premier League, aim for the Premier League, and anything else is always a bonus for me. The Champions League, of course, is the ultimate goal for this club. Still, you can tell the owners want to win it, and so on, and so does Pep, and so do the players, of course, and so do the fans. But I always think, the bread and butter should be the Premier League and win that, and then hopefully other success follows too.
Yeah, as you said, they've had a big week. Manchester City this week, that win at Chelsea, then the Champions League game against PSG. Finish it this weekend with another huge clash away to Liverpool, who obviously is a big rivalry between these two clubs now. They've contested the last couple of seasons the Premier League title as well. We've had that memorable one where City won it on the final day at Brighton, going to a packed Anfield. Another chance for City to put down a marker to the rest of the Premier League that they are the team to beat, and anybody who finishes above them will probably win the Premier League as well. Hopeful in this game, confident that if City can go there and get another result.
I'm slightly relieved because I keep forgetting it was a Sunday afternoon game, isn't it? So we've got a few days now, because obviously it was a taxing game against PSG and even more physically taxing against Chelsea. But, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, there's a little bit of a rest there. So I feel like we can essentially go again and play the strong side that we played against Chelsea and really give it a good go. But, I have to be confident. I'd be silly not to be. It is difficult because it's away at Anfield, and that Anfield tax was famously a pretty bad thing for Manchester City. I know we got a couple of victories there, but fans weren't there. It felt a little bit different. Hopefully, though, that will still play into it a little bit. That air of invincibility, may have gone from Anfield for us. But Liverpool will be up for this as well. Liverpool last season very much burnt. Their pride would have taken an absolute battering because of obviously, they just scraped the Champions League in the end, and they're a much better side than that. They really are. Now they've got obviously the squad kind of back and fully fit. Basically, they will be up for making a statement as well. As much as Manchester City want to do the same and terrify everyone in the Premier League, it's very easy to motivate themselves with this game, Liverpool. It's very easy. This is the game for them. I think actually for us, the Chelsea game was one where we really needed to prove a point. We needed to beat Chelsea. We beat us in the Champions League final and beat us another 2 times prior to that as well. And I think Liverpool will feel it's not quite as strong, of course, because it hasn't got that final kind of element to it. But I think Liverpool will feel really up for this game because there's not as much a point to prove, but there's definitely something to prove for them. City beat them at Anfield last couple of times, and people wrote them off a little bit last season, probably fairly and not fairly at the same time. So I think they'll be massively up for it, but I think City will be aware of that as well. And there's no denying that. The narrative hugely changes for both sides if they get a victory. If City win, I think everyone all of a sudden they're going to win the league. Even I'll be saying that. It's hard not to because Chelsea... to be honest, at that point, if City beat Liverpool, all of a sudden they played Chelsea, Liverpool, Spurs, Leicester, all these teams away already. Yeah. We've only really got United left of the traditional big teams, to play away. I've done it Arsenal a disservice there, but they're not really in that conversation anymore. Sorry, Arsenal.
You're going to get a lot of stick on Twitter.
Ain't my fault they're not very good at the moment, is it? We've already beaten 5-0 once this season. I don't really look at Arsenal as a team to fear at the moment. I'm sure they could prove me wrong, but that's the realistic situation. But then as well, United's in November, so all of a sudden it's big. And Liverpool once again, if they win this game, everyone said they're back. They're in the title race. They could win the league. So there's a lot to learn from these games. And of course, it's not going to make the season because it's only one more game, and anything can happen, as you saw with Brentford, and we saw with Southampton, and we saw United at the weekend. But I can't wait. I think it's going to be a cracker. Actually, I think it's going to be a really good game. Really good game. Yeah.
It's going to be a huge game as normal between these two big rivals, and something to look forward to. But like you said, Stephen, beating your rivals, or probably to win that mini league of the top 4, is so defining and going on to probably win the Premier League title. So that's why these games matter maybe more when you drop points to other teams. If you can beat your direct rivals, it gives you a big psychological advantage as well as the 3 points.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, City are pretty good at usually sweeping up, the teams that aren't in, the rivals directly for the title. And I think that's look. You can afford to have the Southampton game if you can beat Chelsea and Liverpool, because it's a double swing with the points, isn't it? So obviously, yeah, those games are absolutely crucial for a reason. You only have to beat, like if you beat essentially the bottom 10 twice, you've got 60 points, which is not going to happen. But the point is, you imagine that, and then you can have the buffer as well of maybe beating some of the top 10 teams a few times as well. You can easily see how you can win the league. So you always got to aim for those easy ones, but then really give it everything for those big games, knowing that there's potentially a break coming up in terms of the fixture schedule and so on. So that's huge, and fingers crossed we manage it.
Yeah, let's look forward to a great game at Anfield between two top teams in the Premier League. I can't let you go, Stephen, without asking you what you made of the Pep Guardiola comments after the Leipzig game, asking for fans to come out in numbers. And then obviously there was a row with one of the supporters groups and everything else. Was this all blown out of proportion, do you think? Or did Pep have a point?
He probably was. I mean, I'm never going to tell anyone what they mean. He said one thing, then he said he meant something else different. I'm not here to be the fault police. Could have been a broken language, second language thing where he's a bit clumsy with his words. He could have genuinely meant like, what do we need to go again? Kind of. He could have meant for that. I don't know. Either way, I'm not really bothered. I find the whole attendance thing really tiring. Is my honest answer. I find I find this fascination in the Premier League with attendances and who has the most fans or whatever. I find it a bit childish, if I'm being totally honest. It's just like, who ultimately cares? I mean, the way I feel about this kind of stuff, if I was the only guy sat in the Etihad, I would still go and watch Manchester City. I would still enjoy it because football is football and watch it as entertainment. I think the honest answer is Manchester City. We don't have a global fan base full of fans willing to fly over from every corner in the world. That's fine, and I don't blame clubs who do have that either. They're very lucky to have that. City don't. We're very much new to this global super club thing, and that's fine for me as well. And we don't maybe always have the extra fans on those midweek games to kind of fill in the gaps when some of the core ones can't make it. And every club has fans that can't make it sometimes. Some probably have a little bit more fans to fill in those gaps. Maybe it is what it is. I used to work for Levi's actually in Manchester, Arndale, and when United played at home, and this is not a criticism, it's just an observation, we would literally change the staffing levels because at the weekend, if United were playing, we'd have Scandinavian and Irish fans flying over, and they'd just spend a load of money in the store. And that was good for them, man, if they wanted to go and do that. City don't have that, but that comes from United's obvious success over the past few years, and it'll be the same in Liverpool and so on, and that's fine. And there'll be an element of tourism in London and so on. And City haven't got that yet. I'm not going to be upset about that personally. It'll happen in time with City carrying winning. I think Pep meant it sort of motivationally. Maybe he meant it literally. I don't care. As long as he carries on winning football games, I'll ultimately be happy. And I just try to ignore all that nonsense because I find it a little bit tiring. Because for me, in football, there's two things I find really, really dull. Spreadsheet talk and balances and finances and attendances. I like talking about footballers. I like talking about football because to me, it's my pastime. It's something I enjoy doing, and everyone feels differently, and that's fine. If everyone wants to talk about that, we can do. For me, though, I'd just rather talk about Phil Foden being absolutely insanely good at football, or even marveling over Messi being brilliant against us, even though I hate him for it. So that's just where I'm at. Whatever Pep meant, I don't really know. I can't prove it either way, so I'm not going to waste my time worrying about it.
Yeah, all that matters is City continue to win and get results on the pitch. Doesn't matter what happens off the pitch. So that's what all fans want to care about.
This is the best time ever to be a Man City fan. It's the best time ever to be a Man City fan. That's the way I see it. And I don't care how many there sat alongside me or not. And usually in the league games, it's pretty full. It's great fun. And that's all I care about. And I know right now, I probably won't see it as good as this again. Maybe I might do, but 100 points, 98 points, winning every domestic trophy, winning the league last season, winning 20 odd games in a row. That isn't normal, and it won't be normal when Pep goes, in my personal opinion. And for his flaws, which he's also got less. He's also got a billion good things about him. Pep Guardiola, he's a freak of nature in terms of when it comes to coaching, and I'm just going to enjoy him while he's here.
Yeah. So talking about that, Stephen, are you worried about the future when Pep does finally decide to move on?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's a simple answer because I know there's this narrative that Guardiola has done it with money, which he has. Ultimately don't care, but he's probably the best at doing that. And like, there's an element of managing a super club. It's the whole, you wouldn't put Lewis Hamilton in a Skoda, you put him in a McLaren F1 car because he's the best at driving it. And you give, in my opinion, there's no one better managing a bunch of superstars and egos than Pep Guardiola. I think essentially he has that aura. He has that. He's obviously a little bit intense, Guardiola, but I mean the greats usually are. They just are, and they have this something about them that makes them a little bit different. And I don't think there is a life potentially as good post Guardiola immediately as we've got right now. I don't think there is. I think that we'll have to accept maybe falling a little bit back into the pack, because I think we've had relative domestic domination, and Guardiola is just so intense. Like, he's so intense, and the biggest compliment I can pay to Guardiola is that if you ask most fans in the league to name the best players in each position, only a couple of Man City players seem to get in it for whatever reason, even fans of other teams. So that either means we haven't got the best squad in the league, actually, or we haven't got the best individual players. It probably means we've got the best team, which is all down to Guardiola once again. It's funny because it's always like, oh, you've got all the best players, it's easy if you win the league. But then you ask a fan of another team to name the best players in each position, and it's rarely a Manchester City player. So that, to me, that's sort of telling. So I'm not sure if we're greater than the sum of the parts, or the parts are fantastic and brilliant, which I think they are. But I think there's an element of both being true. I think Guardiola does get the best out of the players, and I think the focus and organisation that we saw against Chelsea, for example, I don't see any other manager in the world or coaching that. And I don't just saying that to put down, because there's many managers that are fantastic. Klopp's fantastic, Thomas Tuchel's fantastic. But in terms of that structure and that way of playing, it's pure Pep. It's pure Pep, and I think we forget as well. Coaching. I'm not saying you, but personally, I think other people forget sometimes that coaching isn't just about having the ideas. It's about leading people. And Guardiola is both a savant-like genius at times. He sees things that others don't. Even if they don't all work, he does see football in a way that's so unique to him. And he also then has the wherewithal and the desire, and I guess the know-how to input those ideas, and also to lead a squad of 20-odd mid-20s, early 30s, multi-millionaire footballers, superstars with egos, the size of a small planet. So that takes some doing. He is the boss, essentially, of this club, and to have all those players fall in line, essentially, that's one of the hardest things to do. But then also have the ideas, and obviously he's had the budget. Yeah, of course he has. I'm not going to deny that. But he deserves the budget, is what I will say. He deserves it. And all I will say is that as good as they were, Mancini and Pellegrini were great for us. It's not even close. It isn't close. They both got, they both just about won one Premier League title very close last minute, and I love them for it. But the domestic domination that we see under Guardiola, it's on another level to what they did there. And I think that, and that's not because either are bad managers. They're both very good managers, in fact, and Mancini's cracking manager. But I do think we're more likely to see what we saw under those two, where we have a lot of close runs and maybe win one every three as opposed to 3 out of 4 or maybe 4 out of 5, hopefully. So we'll see.
No, it'd be a massive loss when Pep does go, not just to Manchester City, but I think to the Premier League, because he's taken City to another level in some of the performances. Just like the one against Chelsea the other day were outstanding, and will live long in the memory because it was a complete masterclass from Guardiola. But yeah, I'm sure there's still a few more seasons left in Pep, so Man City fans don't have to worry just yet about that.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, right. That's us for another week here on Touchline Talk. Thank you for joining us this weekend, Stephen, and enjoy your football and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thanks, mate. It's good to chat to you as well, and cheers.